last 12 months have probably been the windiest I can ever remember fishing in. It's been really uncomfortable at times. I've come to Tunnel Barn Farm today, and although it's quite calm this morning, as usual, the wind's forecast to really pick up later on this afternoon. I've got quite a few tips I'd like to just pass on, hopefully help you carry on pole fishing in windy conditions and carry on getting a few bites. Now, on a good day and good conditions with very little wind, I'll think nothing of having a very short line between my pole tip and the float. That means I can react to bites really quickly and just be in connection with the fish very fast, and some very fast bites you get, especially with baits like pellets at this time of year, so well, at any time of year. So that's the length of line I'd normally have, but as soon as it gets windy, I'll think nothing of having 2 or even 3 foot of line above the float. As you can see there's plenty of line, and that means when my pole tip is going left and right, being buffered by the wind, the float still stays where it is, and that's the most important thing. You don't want to be moving your hook bait when you're waiting for bites. Now, a carbon stem float like this AS3 is absolutely perfect in good conditions, but as soon as there's any wind or any ripple or any tow, then I won't hesitate to swap to a wire stem float like this AS1. As you can tell, it's got a slightly thicker bristle, slightly longer bristle, so you've got good visibility in the chop, but it's that wire stem that makes the most difference. It creates a lot more stability and really stops the float rocking and just keeps the float in position a lot more in tough conditions. Now, the other thing you might have noticed with this rig is I've actually got some shot above the float. Now, they're called backshot, and today I've got 3 number 8s, which is commonly what I would use. You can use just 1 or 2 number 8s. I might go up to 5 or 6. Now, I know some people, they'll use a large shot like a number 4 right up to a swan shot, but I prefer number 8s. They're a bit neater and a bit kinder to the line. Now, the main purpose of those is just to stop the wind acting on the float. When you get a big gust of wind, it'll hit those shot first, and that keeps your float in position. And it also means I can actually drop those 3 number 8s below the surface slightly without sinking the float, and that just keeps all the line out the way and stops the wind acting on the float. Great way of keeping your float steady. Now, if you are expecting it to be a windy day, never start really far out. Just because you've got 13, 14, 16 metres of pole doesn't mean you have to fish that far out. If I'm expecting it to be windy, I'll always start close in and wait a good hour before risking fishing further out. The last thing you want to do is feed bait somewhere where you can't fish an hour later on. Now, even if you're fishing just for roach and silverfish, I would always recommend using a strong power pole or a carp pole on windy days, especially in gale force conditions. The last thing you want to be doing is exposing a 2,000 or 3,000 pound pole to the brunt of a full, force 10 gale. So use a cheaper pole. It'll be cheap if you get a breakage. It'll be a stronger pole anyway. And as you're only going to be fishing no more than probably 13 metres out, a strong carp pole is going to be just as fishable as a top of the range 2,000 or 3,000 pound model. A really useful aid in windy conditions has to be one of these. You call them a spray bar or a gentleman's rest, some people call them. They're a really good front mounted pole support. Keep everything locked in position, really helps. You can keep your hands free as well, but obviously on a windy day you're going to be holding the pole a little bit as well, but it just gives you that extra support. But if you are expecting some really strong gusts that are going to really whip your pole and you need to go with the pole to avoid a breakage, then I tend to prefer the non-rippled side. That just means you can just go if you need to let the pole go. Sometimes holding on to that pole is when you'll get a breakage, but when you need to keep everything nice and stable, I use the ridge section there, drop it in, and everything's nicely locked, and you can't get more stable than that on a windy day. Now, on a winter commercial, my top 2 hook baits have to be these, pellets or maggots. And on a windy day, there's only one option, and that is maggots. The reason is because you can fish these a lot more over depth and still get good positive bites. For some reason, fish hold on to maggots much longer than they will a pellet. They can suck in and out a pellet and spit them out before you even see it. But by fishing maggots, normally 2 on the hook, I can fish over depth and still keep the hook bait in position and have really good presentation and still get good positive bites. Now the other hook bait you can try on a windy day has to be corn. It's a brilliant hook bait because it's so heavy. Obviously it's nice and bright and fish do like sweet corn, but the main advantage on a windy day, especially when there's a lot of lake undertow, is the fact that it's heavy. And that extra weight, once you hook it, it almost acts like a little plummet. So you can almost drag your hook bait through and it will really help everything to stay in position. Great hook bait. On those really gusty days, even a little pole mounted pot like that can get caught by the wind. So on those sort of days, I'll take it off, put it to one side, and I'll do all my feeding with a separate large pole pot. You don't have to put loads of feed in, but just do all your feeding with that, and that way you've got a nice clean pole tip that the wind's going to just blow straight past. Your presentation will be so much better because you've not got a little pole pot on the end getting caught by the wind. It's really easy for a strong gust of wind to catch your pole tip whilst you're actually playing a fish. So I always try and drop down an elastic grade, something like 4 to 6 aqua bungee, or my personal favourite in winter is doubled up number 4 elastic. It's a lot lighter than I'd normally fish, but it just means that when your pole does get dragged sideways by a big gust of wind, you're not going to pull out of a fish so easily. So they're my top tips. Hopefully they'll catch you a few more fish this winter.